Good morning.
Good morning.
Excuse me. How are y'all this morning?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Good, good. Very, very good.
How's your music going?
It's going well. Doing a lot of recording and releasing new songs, and just finished another one. Well, very close to finishing another one right now, and more on the way. So really enjoying that part of the process for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Morning. How's it going?
Hi. Hi, good.
Good.
Sorry I missed you guys last week.
Well, we're sorry because we missed you.
Well,
We're
I
sorry
got a
too.
notice that said you weren't meeting, and then all of a sudden I saw another one that said you were meeting. So I was confused.
Yeah, that was that last week or the week before?
I think it was last week.
Was it? So there was I sent out the notice we were going to meet, and then my dad needed me to sit with him while my mom went to an appointment, so I had to cancel. I was thinking that was the week before, but I guess that was last week. Sorry about that, but glad y'all are here today.
So how's your dad doing right now?
He's
Pretty good.
doing really well. He is right where he needs to be. Now it's just about building back his energy and strength and endurance, but he's clearer headed and more active than he's been. He's
Okay, that's good.
driving his tractor around the farm and
Oh,
truck. Yeah, little not exactly what the doctor wanted, but he is doing that. So
yeah, but you can't stay in the house,
No,
indefinitely.
it's
So
good.
it's good he's getting
Loves
out a little bit.
definitely loves it.
Yeah, that's good. Good.
Stop. So
So you have autumn today?
I'm gonna have autumn in just a little while. The weather's really bad here, and they're getting out of school early. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yep.
Get down.
I'm gonna hit Facebook Live and go live
Okay.
today for our meeting. So give me just a second to do that. Excuse me. All right. Welcome to Meeting Monday. So glad y'all are here. Really appreciate you joining me again. For those of you joining by Facebook Live, Meeting Mondays is something we do every Monday at noon Central Time. And it's an opportunity to reflect and share about what makes life most meaningful and how to have the best, most meaningful life that we can. So glad that you joined us. If you go to my website, michaellister.com, you can actually get information about joining us. We'll send you an email. Most people meet via Zoom. So if I'm looking that way, you'll know why. But you can join us via Zoom to be there every time, or occasionally we'll be on Facebook. Today, I want to talk to y'all about stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety. What do you do when you feel stressed, when you feel anxious? Now, those are things that, if I'm honest, I don't experience very often. It's not to say I never do. I'm not saying that, but it's rare, relatively rare. But I had an experience recently where I did, and it was very fascinating to me because I felt something going on inside of me and had no idea why. This was on a day, at a moment, at a time where things couldn't be better. And speaking of this time right now, this is a very incredible week for our family. My daughter is about to give birth to our second grandchild, our second granddaughter. So we're so grateful for that. And then my son, Micah, my middle son, is getting married this week. So it's an incredible time. And, so many wonderful things happening. And when I had this experience, it was just like that. Great time, great things happening. And so typically, if I feel stressed or anxious or whatever, I typically know why, right? It's not just out of the blue. And typically it has something to do with conflict. Usually it's conflict with someone else or, something like that. I don't know. Perhaps it's a deadline, related to work or whatever. Like say I've got a deadline for my novel, whatever it happens to be, I usually know. But in this case, I had no idea. And I try to, at least once a day, usually in the morning, take my blood pressure. Well, this time, when I felt that going on, I was like, I'm going to take my blood pressure and see what's up. So I took it, and my blood pressure on most days is right here on my calendar. It's usually 129, 126 over like 80, 83, that kind of thing. Well, when I took it, it was like 154 over 90 something. I was like, yeah, I knew, I could tell something was going on. Well, but again, I had no idea why. So I thought, did I dream something? Was there something in my dreams that I'm carrying into this day? This got me, is it something I'm picking up on that, is preconscious? It's like, I don't really know. Is it the weather? Because there was weather that day that was like threatening or whatever. I just had no idea. But I knew that whether I was aware of why the stress was there, that anxious feeling or not, the way I deal with it is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. And so today I want us to talk about ways in which we can deal with anxiety, stress. What are some best practices we can do from the very beginning to make sure that we, don't stay in those states of anxiety or stress? There are necessary physiological, mental, emotional changes when there's an actual crisis that we need to respond to. But when that's not the case, stress and anxiety is very bad for us, physically, mentally. It does a number on us. And we see the effects of that all the time. People living with anxiety and stress, and whether it's that sort of low level baseline that's always there because of the barrage of information in this age, because of the pace of life, because of the disconnection to others, to self, to the beyond, to that which gives life that spiritual dimension, that meaningful, purposeful dimension. Whatever it is, we see a lot of it and we see the impacts of it. So I feel like this will be beneficial and helpful for anyone dealing with stress. So let's talk about, just as an example, let's say that this morning you woke up with a headache. And you said to yourself, I bet it's a tumor. And then you told your spouse, I have a headache, and I haven't had a headache in years. I don't know what's going on. And your spouse says, it's just a headache. It'll be gone in a little while. You can take some aspirin or whatever you want to do, And then you tell yourself, he or she is not taking me seriously. They're downplaying my tumor. They don't realize that I'm going to die soon. And, and you just work yourself up into this, catastrophize the worst possible outcomes. And that just builds that anxiety, builds that. in a similar way, when something real happens, I mean, a headache is real, right? And if you have conflict with someone, or if you have a setback in some way, that in of itself is real and actual and may have to be dealt with in some way. But the ways in which we magnify it and make it so much bigger inside of ourselves is what leads to this increased anxiety and stress. And so, like the person who gets a headache and thinks they have a tumor, we can have something happen that's, a relatively small matter, and we just blow it up. Now, when I say a relatively small matter, to you, it might be a huge matter. And I get that. They say that the difference in major and minor surgery is, if I'm having it, it's major. If you're having it, it's minor. And a lot of times we approach our problems like that, right? We look at others and we say, with some perspective, we say, they got that. It's no big deal. They can handle it. It's a pretty small in the whole realm of things and that could happen. And for ourselves, something happens and we're like, oh my goodness, this is the worst possible thing that could happen to me. It's huge. I will never overcome this. But it's all about mentality and mindset and where we go. So what do we do when we feel stressed? There's the obvious things I want to talk about, which are related to breathing. A lot of times when we are stressed, if we will do a body scan and say, hey, what's going on here? A lot of times there's going to be a lot of clenching, right? We're sort of tight. And if we could just unclench, regain our posture, and start breathing again. And start with a few very deep breaths, and then ease into our normal breaths, but pay attention to our breathing. That's a practice that will get us immediately into that mind-body connection where our focus is in the right place. Most of the time, and I challenge all of you on this, and I think you'll find it's the case. Most of the time, if you take that pause and you say, is everything okay right now, right this moment? And you challenge yourself to say, is this stress coming from a dread of what I think could possibly happen in the future? Then all we're doing is borrowing trouble. All we're doing is worrying about something that most likely will never happen. So we're living the worst case scenario because that's what's in our minds. That's what's going on inside of us. We're actually living it. The experiences of that, the stress and anxiety, the ways in which that harms us. And yet it never actually happens outside of us. Or if something, let's say, bad does happen, then all we've done is live it twice. So we've lived it during the dread of it. We've lived it during the anxiety and stress, and it's ruining, it's robbing us of this present moment. So we're losing that, and then we're losing all the time up till something actually happens, and then we're experiencing that. So we're experiencing it twice. So either way, holding on to stress and anxiety, holding on to these thoughts and fears about the future, these stressors, these anxieties, these guilts, these shame voices about the past, just robs us of what we have right now. And most of the time, you tell me if it's true for you, but most of the time, if we pause and we take our breaths and we get into that moment, we'll know that everything is fine. We're worrying about the future, right? We're borrowing trouble. We are taking an approach to life that robs us of what is right now available, which is peace and serenity. So I would say when you feel stressed, turn to your breath, turn to your body, see what's happening. When I had that experience, I could tell that my blood pressure was elevated. I had no idea why. Like I said, was it a dream? Was it the weather? What was it? It doesn't matter what it was. And I didn't even spend a lot of time trying to figure it out because I knew that wasn't. So I paused. I became conscious of what was going on inside of me, and I started breathing. And just those cleansing breaths, just those mindful breaths made a big difference. The next thing I did, and what I would recommend to you, is meditation. That's related to breathing. And if we will, again, take that pause, and you could do a guided meditation. You can, I use Insight Timer. It's on my phone. It's an app. I click it. It'll lead you. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands, I believe, of meditations on every subject you could possibly imagine. But every day there's new ones that are in my feed about a mindfulness meditation to start the day. Or I'll throw on, I'll tell, I'm not going to use her name because she'll start doing something, but I'll tell the Amazon device to start playing meditation music. The next thing I did was to light a candle and burn some incense. Again, that's creating an environment outside of me that will have an impact on the inside of me. If you're feeling anxious or stressed, if it's possible, stop what you're doing and do something else. And what I mean is get up. If you can, get out of take a walk. If you can't go somewhere, just move around to the extent that you can. Maybe you do, some people do yoga, some people do a little stretching. You could dance. If you play an instrument, you could pick up an instrument and play and sing, stretch, whatever, anything that gets you out of that moment of anxiety and stress is going to be helpful and beneficial. Again, these are simple, basic practices that help us when we have anxiety or stress. And I'm willing to bet I'm not saying anything you've not heard before. It's not what we know, it's what we do with what we know. And when we are upset, when we're emotional, when we're stressed, we have a tendency, we're already compromised, right? We have a tendency not to practice the things that we know are best for us. If you get in a situation, let's say you're in traffic or you're at a store in a line and someone is rude, they cut you off in traffic, they're confrontational in some way. Do you take a pause? Do you take a breath? Do you say, that person must be having a really bad day. They're not making the best choices, are they? But guess what? That's not going to make me make bad choices. I am going to remain calm. I'm going to remain centered and focused, and I will not react, but respond. And if I can respond with loving kindness, I may change their day. I may help them have a much better day. But either way, I'm going to have the day I want, have the day I need, because my response is going to be much better than if I just reacted quickly and thoughtlessly and stepped into whatever they've got going on. Another really good practice is to write it down. If you're struggling, if you're panicking, if your feelings are your thoughts are making you stressed and anxious, I hope you keep a journal, but even if you don't, that'd be a good time to start. Write it down. Get it outside of you. Put it down on paper. And a lot of times, the next one that's related to that is share it with someone. In the process of writing it down or in the process of sharing it with someone, you begin to see, oh, this is a lot smaller than it was when it was so big inside of my brain. And maybe the person we're sharing it with gives us some perspective. Says, I went through something similar to that. not that long ago, and this is what I did. This worked for me. Things are so good now, it's but either maybe they just comfort you and they say, I understand how you're feeling and I'm here to support you. I care. I'm gonna give to you any support and care that I can. You can, anything that gives perspective, anything that brings you, when we're stressed or anxious, we're heightened, right? There's this heightened, it's biologically, physiologically, we are ready to respond in a way that in could potentially, and in the past, going way back, saved our lives, right? If there was a real threat or danger, we need to be able to respond to it. Well, we're wired that way. And so often when there's not a real threat or danger, we still have some of those responses. And they're meant to be momentary reactions to something that's a real threat or danger. But if we walk around living with them, and they are always having an impact on us. I mentioned earlier blood pressure. That high blood pressure has an impact on us physically, on our health. Walking around with stress, walking around with anxiety has a huge impact on our health. It affects our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, our physical health. It has such an impact. So when we recognize it, if we can take these steps, we're going to have benefits that are mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And I would say almost always, the very first thing to do is pause. If at all possible, take a pause. Take a breath. Take a moment. Have some quiet. And then practice some of these things we've been talking about. If you picture your stress or anxiety as a out of control fire inside of you, then see yourself as a firefighter who, with cool, calming practices, can extinguish that fire. But we can also add fuel to that fire and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. What do you do between the tests that the doctor runs and your visit to find out the results of those tests? Are you worrying? Are you stressed? Are you thinking about the worst possible scenario? Or are you grateful for every moment? Are you mindful and present and enjoying life and getting the most out of this life? Are you sharing your gifts with others and making the world a better place in some small way? Are you living as you always would or should or could? Or are you being robbed of that which you have no control over? And the biggest part of our stress and anxiety comes from our desire to have control over things we have no control over. So the way that person's driving in traffic, the way that person acts at the job, your coworker, the store you're trying to the partner you have, the children, the parents, the family members, could, you know, that whatever they're doing, rather than just letting it go and letting them be and letting them live and do what they need to do, we're trying to control. We're trying to micromanage. We're trying to get them to see things our way. We're trying to. So an antidote to stress and anxiety is the serenity prayer, is the practice of letting go. I'm not going to try to control the world. I'm not going to try to control my neighbor. I'm not even going to try to control my children or my spouse or my brother or my best friend. I'm going to go within. I'm going to take responsibility for me. And that's where my focus is going to be, in becoming my best self and living my best life. I'm not going to ignore stress and anxiety. I'm not going to, you know, we've been talking about best practices. Let's talk a minute about some worst practices. Ignoring or resisting with a certain clenched approach does nothing. It just makes it worse. Trying to distract ourselves. Parenting small children, I would often try to distract them. They were, you know, wanting some huge something at the toy store that, you know, was just, it wasn't their birthday, it wasn't Christmas, we couldn't do that. Or they didn't want to take a bath, or they, you know, one of my approaches would be distraction. You know, we got to leave somewhere they don't want to leave. I'm talking about how good the next place is going to be, or look at this, let's do this, let's play this, you know, make it a game, make it fun. You know, a little of that may be okay, but a lot of times I think we parent ourselves that way, and we're constantly trying to distract ourselves. We feel stressed, we feel anxiety, so we turn to a sitcom. We're gonna laugh. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. Laughing is great. Laughter is medicine. But if we do that in a way to distract ourselves from really dealing with what's happening, then all we're doing is allowing it to grow, allowing it to still have its impact, and we've just distracted ourselves for a little while. When we come back, is still there. Same thing with trying to resist it, like with the force of our will. We're just going to control it. We're just going to take a hold of it. We're just going to, again, it just makes it bigger. It makes it grow within us. It makes it take over. The other thing that so many people do, and it's one of the worst possible things we can do, is to numb it. If you turn to drugs or alcohol or shopping or busyness or religion, certain approaches to religion or sex or any number of other things as a way to numb what's really going on, you just let it grow. It doesn't deal with it. It only makes it worse. So if you see yourself as this firefighter and you see the stress or anxiety as the fire, the actions we take either add to it and cause it to grow and evolve and become bigger and let it take over, or they cool those flames. They calm that fire. They bring peace, serenity, centeredness back so that we can truly have our best life in this moment and be at peace. Be at peace. I hope that was helpful. Let me know your thoughts, comments, reactions. Share anything you want to. I would love to hear what you have to say about it.
Michael, I was thinking of George Costanza's dad demanding serenity now. Serenity now. But then I thought of Doris Day sweetly singing, "What will be, will be."
Yes. Yes. Acceptance brings serenity.
Well, Michael, I'm a retired nurse, and I just want to say that if somebody comes to you and says, I have the worst headache that I've ever had in my life, and I've got to do something about it, do something about it. I had a doctor that stuck her finger up my nose and said, you are responsible for your own health. Don't give that to anybody. So if you really feel like something bad's happening, you need to get it checked out immediately. So, yeah. But, the flip side is everything is not a crisis.
Right.
And you can't make it a crisis.
Right.
So I have to say I'm almost never anxious. I do have moments, but very few and far between. And I don't really practice deep breathing, but I do start my day with the scriptures and realize that there is nothing in this world that's about me, not a thing. And I'm good with that. So I don't have to control anything. And that is so freeing to understand that I'm in charge of nothing except me. I just have to, and sometimes I can't even do me. But and I also go to the pool and work out and so and when you're with your friends, it's like you're hardly working, and that it's just enjoy yourself, enjoy your day, enjoy the time you have, and stop stressing about stuff that you have no control over at all.
Yeah.
But it's a good topic because so many people are so worried about everything. So
Thank you. I do think we have higher levels of stress and anxiety than perhaps ever before. I totally agree with you that I'm not in any way saying, like, the illustration about getting a headache and thinking it's a tumor is not saying don't get treatment, don't look at things that need to be, but also don't catastrophize and think that every little thing is something huge. The next step to that, when the person, in my illustration, when the person gets a headache and they say it's a tumor and their spouse says it's just a headache, take an aspirin, then what's their next step? Well, if it's to go to the internet to diagnose themselves,
no,
then they can see all the horrible things it could be. No, if you think there's a need, go to a professional, go see a doctor.
That's right.
And find out what's actually going on. Another thing, you mentioned exercise, and I totally agree. And that should be a part of to whatever ability we're able to, that should be part of our daily, at least weekly routines, is to fit in exercise. It has so many benefits. I said, like, in the moment, stretch, yoga, do whatever you can in the moment. But as a regular routine, we should be exercising, and the benefits are just extraordinary. Anything you can do, if it just is so helpful. The other thing that I didn't mention that I want to, in response to what you said, is you mentioned the pool. Anything we can do that is as close to play as we can is so good for us. My ability, my opportunity to play with my grandchildren is no different than when I had small children, when my children were small. Play as much as possible. That makes, and if you play an instrument, if you play a sport, play. There's been a lot of studies that show that playing is just so beneficial. And there are certain places in our country where judges have the ability to sentence juveniles to Shakespeare companies to participate in a play, or they can go the other route of going to juvenile jail and that kind of thing. And the success rates they are having by putting these kids in these plays and letting them play a different part and seeing the world from a different point of view and playing is having an extraordinary impact, and the success rate's great. So who else? Got a few more minutes. Anybody?
I think hard work takes your mind off your troubles. Physical activity.
Yeah, activity, but whether it's exercise or work or play, it's as active. It's being active. Got about 2 minutes. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
Well, for an old person, it's a good excuse to take a nap.
Naps are also
Let's-
good and helpful.
It's too stressful. I'll take a nap.
Listen, Bob, I have it on good authority that you don't need an excuse when you're retired. You can do whatever you feel you need to do.
Michael, it was a really great topic. Thank you for all the reminders. Really great topic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. One last thing that brings up the conversation you guys just had. There is this phenomenon that as we age and into retirement, we give ourselves permission to be more ourselves, to do the things we want to do more. Why wait until retirement? Be yourself now. Do what's best for you and your loved ones now. Make good choices and decisions. Don't put it off. Don't say, one day I will have the life I want. This is your day. This is your moment. Make choices. Give yourself permission to have your best life possible. Do that which is the healthiest and best for you and those around you. And do not wait. Do not put it off. Thank y'all so much for being here. I hope you have a great week. It's not going to be as good as my week with a new grandbaby coming and new daughter-in-law coming into the family, but I hope you're great too.
Take a lot of pictures, Michael.
Have a great week.
Y'all too.
Yeah,
Love y'all.
thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That was very good, wasn't it?